Vivo has just dropped the V11, bringing a lot of what made the Vivo Nex great to a much more affordable price tag. And in some ways, it's better. For an average price of about $400, you are getting a lot of phone here. Let's just get a point of reference though. $400 makes the V11 cheaper than the OnePlus 6, and the Note 9 by a long shot, but not quite Xiaomi's new Pocophone F1. And Vivo has killed it with the finish. It is subtle but surprising, and flashy but not in a cheap way. It has color changing elements from the Honor 10, shifting from a blue to a purple depending on the angle, with this kind of slight glimmer to it. It doesn't feel as great as it looks, with a plasticky finish and slight flex if you put pressure on the back, but it is a slim, featherweight design, and its lack of weight combined with the large display almost makes it feel like you're cheating. We have to start with the cameras. This is where a big part of Vivo's marketing has gone, and let's just say for good reason. This 25 megapixel front camera might just be the best I've ever used. It doesn't overexpose, which many China phones fall victim to, and has a backlight HDR mode, which turns on when your background is brighter than your foreground, capturing up to 6 frames at different exposures to make sure detail loss is minimized. In low light, the phone uses automatic brightness compensation, using the brightness of your phone's display to light your face, which can basically make a dim room look like daylight. Not to mention the lighting modes. You've got a whole bunch of Apple-inspired effects like studio lighting, which are okay, but rainbow lighting, which adds a cascade of rainbow light onto your face and lens flares, and monochrome background are two that do work really well. Images from the rear 12 megapixel camera are generally great, and with HDR mode on, it is tough to complain about any part of the image. And they are categorically detailed, really crisp images that you'd feel comfortable blowing up to larger sizes. The same is true for portrait mode. Photos ooze detail, and it's tough to complain about the bokeh effect as well. I was pretty taken aback by AI face beauty. There are just so many options to make yourself pretty. Everything from real-time nose thinning to skin whitening to jaw lengthening. And while it doesn't quite hold up to smartphones like the Galaxy S9 in low light, it isn't far off either, and it also has built-in support for Google Lens, which can detect landmarks and translate languages, loads of other good stuff. This setup is let down a bit by mediocre video that maxes out at 1080p and has trouble with dynamic range. From the front, it would be kinda tough to argue that this isn't a great looking phone. And we're not just talking display here, but form factor too. Slim bezels on all 4 sides and only this tiny notch. It's basically the Vivo Nex display, the same Full HD Plus resolution, the same brilliant contrast and viewing angles, but just a slightly smaller screen with this teardrop on top. Vivo is really flexing when it comes to options for unlocking this phone. The in-display fingerprint scanner actually feels faster than on the Vivo Nex, but is still prone to a lot of the same issues. Face unlock though, something I usually cast aside, is good enough in this phone to become my default unlock method. It's not just fast, but the phone barely even needs to be pointing towards your face for detection, and it even works well in a dark room. Unfortunately, the V11 isn't hugely powerful, and this ends up becoming the phone's Achilles heel. It does have 6GB of RAM, but the Snapdragon 660 chip means its graphics performance is less than half of phones with the Snapdragon 845. They call it flagship grade hardware, but I don't think you can call a phone flagship when at its core it's powered by a mid-range chip. Mind you, it's not a bad phone for performance and gaming. The UI flies, and it's tough to get the phone to chug with everyday tasks. But you've just got to bear in mind that the same chip can be had on Xiaomi's Mi A2, a phone that is barely $250. The phone's got a 3400 mAh battery, which is just above average, but it makes good use of it. From the 2 weeks I've been using the phone, I've not once worried about battery. It uses micro USB for charging, which is a confusing decision, but you do still get their dual engine fast charge, which is actually a little faster than Samsung's fast charging. The phone runs on FunTouch OS, which sounds like great fun. In practice, I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetic, but it's not the end of the world. It's pretty similar to a lot of Chinese phone manufacturers' skins, but everything here does work straight out of the box. There's a bit of bloatware still, even if Vivo has drilled down on it since past devices, and it feels a lot like an iOS clone. But hey, some people seem to really like it, and if you don't, it's easy to change the default launcher. The phone is missing a sprinkle of features that you would get if you paid more for a phone like the Note 9. IP certification, wireless charging, dual speakers, and microSD cards are all absent. Although this last one isn't really a huge issue for me, as the built-in storage comes in at 128GB. In conclusion, I'm impressed. You're getting a lot of phone here for $400, and if the front and rear cameras are the most important things for you, then the V11 is a safe bet. For me though, having the best chipset is the #1 priority. That's going to help with not just gaming, but application load times, sustained performance over a period of time, camera performance, and the list goes on. This phone performs fine. It's a mid-range phone with a mid-range chip. But we are now entering an age with smartphones like the Pocophone F1 where it's possible to get an entry-level phone with a high-end chip. And so side by side, this becomes harder to recommend. That's not to say you're getting less here. The display is brilliant, and the design also works in the V11's favour. Even though I didn't find myself using the in-display fingerprint scanner, this phone has enough really strong characteristics that make it a good phone for the money. Alright guys, just before you head off, I just want to say that the other day we actually passed 1.5 million subscribers, which came a lot faster than I was expecting. So if you're any part of that group, then it just really means a lot to me. So thanks for sticking around. Catch you guys later.